This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. Tonight, aliens. I just couldn't resist. Government reports and personal testimonies have put a little fire behind rumors of extraterrestrial life. We're getting philosophical with scholars and faith leaders to ask what life beyond Earth would mean for the world's major religions. But first, here's what you need to know right now. The most populous state in the country lifted most of its COVID-19 restrictions today. In California, social distancing requirements and mask mandates are over for vaccinated people. Capacity limitations are also ending. There are, of course, some exceptions for public transportation, schools, hospitals, and jails. Still, it's a milestone worth marking because California was the first to impose a statewide shutdown last March. President Biden is still holding out hope for his goal of getting 70% of adults in the US at least partially vaccinated by the 4th of July. The White House is planning an independent from the virus bash, but experts say hitting that goal is unlikely and COVID is still going to be here for a while. Just under 65% of US adults have gotten at least one shot, but that number is ticking up a lot slower now that fewer than 1 million shots are being given each day. Don't get me wrong, the vaccination effort is making progress. As more states lift restrictions and case numbers stay low, it's a sure sign of the impact of vaccines. But there's still that Delta variant causing concern as it spreads around the world. A big worry right now is that it could spark new outbreaks in areas of the US where vaccination rates are low. In China, doctors say the symptoms they see from the variant are different and more dangerous than the original strain of the virus. In the UK, where the Delta variant is now the dominant strain, reopenings have been delayed.
I think it is sensible to wait just a little longer. By Monday, the 19th of July, we will aim to have double jabbed around 2/3 of the adult population.
The Biden administration has a new plan to counter domestic terrorism in the US. A report from the Director of National Intelligence released back in March said, racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists and militia violent extremists present the most lethal threats. Part of the strategy includes setting up a national framework for authorities to better share information on the local, state, and federal levels. The Department of Justice is also looking into whether to recommend that Congress pass a new law specifically focused on domestic terrorism. It's a pretty drastic shift from the previous administration, which continuously downplayed the threat of white supremacists and other domestic threats. At the White House today, Newsy Sasha Ingber asked a national security aide to President Biden about the administration's focus on extremism at home.
The FBI recently warned lawmakers that QAnon followers might shift into real-life violence instead of just spreading conspiracy theories online. How much does that worry you?
It's a concern, and it's a concern precisely because experts at the FBI and elsewhere in our government have briefed us as policymakers on their analysis. I think the word they use sometimes is to see those conspiracies as gateways to violence. They help move people down a pathway away from facts towards falsities and ultimately, in some cases, towards acting violently based on those falsities, frankly.
Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin a couple months ago said that she hopes that this strategy is not heavy-handed and that after 9/11 we saw the incentivizing of more terrorists in the Middle East because of how we approached it.
I think all of us who do this work, we do it recognizing that we are coming up on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And a number of things were done after 9/11 that have kept Americans safe, and some things were done after 9/11 that came to be seen as overreactions that were regretted later. I think we undertake this work hoping to do what needs to be done to protect Americans without the overstep, without the overreach.
Former President Donald Trump and some of his supporters have continually repeated false claims that there was fraud during the 2020 election. Now, documents released from the House Oversight Committee show just how far Trump was willing to go to spread that message in the months after his loss. More than 200 pages of documents show that Trump and members of his cabinet sent emails to top DOJ officials pressuring them to investigate claims of fraud. On December 14th, the day the Electoral College met to certify the election, Trump sent along talking points to then Deputy Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen that called into question election results in one Michigan county. Less than an hour later, Trump announced via tweet that Attorney General Bill Barr would be stepping down and that he'd be replaced by Rosen. Barr notably disputed the claims that there was any evidence of election fraud. The emails sent from and between Trump and his allies are rife with conspiracy theories about the election, including a claim that voter fraud was caused by satellites in Italy. I want to know more, but I also don't want to know more, if you get what I'm saying. The House Oversight Committee requested these documents from the DOJ while looking into factors that led up to the January 6th attack on the Capitol building. As a part of their next steps, the committee has requested that some of the individuals named in the documents, like former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and former senior DOJ official Richard Donahue, appear for transcribed interviews. I haven't hid the fact that the government's disclosures on UFOs got me a little hyped and a little skeptical. The Pentagon is expected to put out a more detailed report on UFOs later this month, and some people have thoughts on how a real-life ET might impact the world's religions. Newsy's Amber Strong has more.
Lately, there's been a lot of talk about what's out there and the idea of life beyond our world.
We don't know if it's extraterrestrial. We don't know if it's an enemy.
Scientists, philosophers, theologians have been having this conversation for centuries and often mused, if something really is out there, how would it impact the world's major religions, especially those who view human beings as a special creation from a higher being? It turns out, not all that much.
There are some religions like Mormonism that believe in extraterrestrial life, so they wouldn't be surprised. There are some religions like Judaism that would simply say, okay, extraterrestrials can exist, that's God's business.
The question of what happens to the world's religions is something Vanderbilt astronomer Dr. David Weintraub looked to discover in his book, Religions and Extraterrestrial Life. The notion of cosmic pluralism, or other worlds which may contain intelligent life, has been around for centuries. For example, 12th century Islamic theologian Fakhr al-Din al-Razi wrote, "The Most High has the power to create 1,000,000 worlds beyond this world." But that premise faced challenges throughout history, with many early Christians leaning into the Aristotelian notion that the earth is the center of the universe, and ergo, so were human beings.
Once astronomers were confident that the earth wasn't the center of the universe, philosophers and theologians began debating why those other worlds exist. And the conclusion was God created those other worlds in order to create other beings to worship God.
Human Genome Project Director Dr. Francis Collins tells Newsy the same God he believes created DNA has the capacity to create things that aren't explicitly in the Bible.
Would we think that it was just not possible for God to keep track of more than one planet? Hey, we're talking about Almighty God here. I don't think that would stress his capabilities at all. And if in fact this was part of God's plan from the beginning with the creation of this universe, that it would give rise to life in more than one place, I think that's wonderful.
Not all, but many Christians agree. The late evangelical leader Billy Graham said something similar, writing, "The Bible doesn't tell us whether or not there is intelligent life on other planets, although I find nothing in the Bible that would exclude the possibility. But if there is life on other planets, then God created that life." Perhaps the question of religion and aliens is best summed up by former Yeshiva University President Rabbi Norman Lamb, who wrote, "The discovery of fellow intelligent creatures elsewhere in the universe, if indeed they do exist, will deepen and broaden our appreciation of the mysteries of the Creator and His creations. Man will be humble, but not humiliated." Amber Strong, Newsy, Washington.
Members of the president's own party are pushing for him to get more critical about a longtime ally.